Today's video, we're going to be talking about ringless voicemail drops and how you can use them to make more money than what cold emails can do for your business with a similar approach. That is, you're doing any kind of email marketing now, you can make more money using voicemail drops. Voicemail drops are basically where you can mass leave voice messages on people's voicemails on their cell phones to say whatever you want. You may have heard of this, you may have gotten these before. The way that most people use these ringless voicemails now, though, is totally idiotic. They try to sound like a mass marketed message, whereas if you sound personalized, that's how you use these to make the real money. I'm going to explain how we specifically did this before in B2B context, selling to businesses as well as to end consumers, non-businesses, and how you can apply this to your business as well. Of course, as well as what kind of numbers you can expect out of this in terms of response rates, and then response rates as compared to the kind of response rates you're going to get through email marketing by itself. This is a service that lets you leave automatic voicemails on people's cell phones. This is technically, by the way, just to throw the disclaimer out there right away, in case you're thinking it or in case you're trying to talk yourself out of doing this, technically illegal if you call people on the do not call list, which is what makes it illegal. So there's the do not call list still exists. If you leave a voicemail on somebody's phone and they're on the do not call list, you could technically still get fined. Okay, well, but that said, this should deter absolutely anybody or nobody from doing ringless voicemail, because you can easily take your do not call list, use the existing list that you want to target with your voicemail drop campaign, and cleanse the list. You know, you'll lose 10-20% of your names, and you can now voicemail drop another 90%. So this is really just a non-issue. But that said, you should still seriously consider doing it. You're not going to lose much money, and you're still risking a lawsuit if you don't do it. And you may say that the lawsuit there's little risk there of actually getting sued, and that is true. But there are there's lawyers that specifically are looking for people to sue on stuff like this. So it's not zero chance either. The method that you're going to use to do voicemail drops, that is the signature method that I'm going to use routinely moving forward on any companies I also have part ownership in, which is several, or for advise a client to make some extra money on the side. I do not do and run voicemail drop campaigns for clients. However, partial business advisor to clients that are ad agency, if we make the good money on their ads, their question always is, "Oh, Corey, how else can we make money? What are other things that work?" And I say voicemail drops a higher and higher percentage of the time now due to how well they actually work, and based upon what we've seen with them already, which is why I'm also making this video for you guys here today. So with that said, what do? You have to find a good offer to make a voicemail campaign work for yourself for step one of the process. When I say good offer, I don't mean, hey, come down to 4th Street. We have golf clubs for sale here. It's just open, blah, blah, blah. Now, that might work if you there was no cost to send a voicemail. While the cost is very low, it's not zero. So you're still going against the clock, if you will. You got to be able to get so much response out of each voicemail to make voicemails pay for themselves. And of course, the cost of developing the list, which has its own cost. That is voicemail number list or cell phone number list that you need to be able to get. I'll give you an actual example where we referred. There was specifically a pro shop that sold golf equipment, that kind of thing. What we did there in that particular instance, which if you're in a similar type of business where there's a lot of repeat business, a lot of value from a customer. If you're selling golf clubs in a local market, there's certain customers that you need to come back again and again and again. So if a customer is worth a lot, and there's only so many customers that are going to repeat buy in that market. We're not trying to go after and stretch hard to get somebody buying a gift for their husband or wife or husband mainly, obviously in that context. What we really want is the person who buys something every year, but practically speaking, because they golf, they're an avid golfer. How do we get that customer? Well, that's actually not that hard to do with the access to data lists. You can actually go out and you could go to a company like Nextmark mailing lists, find customers who are regular repeat buyers of golf equipment that spend more than a minimal amount on that equipment, get and download the phone number list so you can run the direct mail campaign to them. And then with that, because you know you're dealing with high value prospects, not a one-off customer, you can actually do more to get that customer in the door, knowing if you're smart enough to value that customer based upon what they're really worth. We'll just call loser business owners try to do all the time at our agency, people that I won't work with, is the real value of a customer in a business like that is like $500 lifetime value of a customer. They'll try to make me generate a 1,000% return on an investment on a customer on their initial purchase. When they initially come in, they are normally going to spend $50 on their initial purchase, but they're not going to look at the 9 future purchases that person's going to make. They want me to get a 1,000% return on the initial purchase. Well, that doesn't work when all the rest of the people in your market's willing to look at the full value of a customer versus their initial purchase. And you want the advertising spend then as a result of that to cost $5 to get a customer that's worth $500. So really what you want is not a 1,000% ROI on your advertising investment. You want a 10,000% return, and you're asking for too much. Why do I mention all this? Well, in that context, I could, in a coachable client, I can explain, okay, what's the value of a customer over time? Oh, I don't know. Okay, well, what is the total number of transactions you've done at your firm versus the total unique customers that you've dealt with at your company? And they can go and run that report. Okay, $500 looks like the average value of a customer. Okay, yes, people don't like to have to wait for the customer to come back 9 times to get the return on investment. And therefore, they can't scale an advertising campaign that quickly because you've got to wait for money to come back in. But in that context, I can say, okay, now great. We can spend $50 to get a customer. We can send a lot of voicemail drops out there to get that customer. Are you looking to buy a new piece of golf equipment this spring? We're giving all new customers 50% off their initial purchase. Doesn't matter if it's a driver, golf balls, what you name it. You're going to buy anything, you buy it from us, you're going to get 50% off. Now that's an offer that can work with a voicemail drop campaign because it actually is worth something. Say your measly 10% off anything in store doesn't get anybody excited. You get a voicemail like that, you're going to delete it. You're not going to give a shit. Or maybe it slightly interests you, but it's not enough to seriously take it into consideration. You need something where people are literally going to thank you for sending that to them. Then you've got an offer that you can work with, okay? Because still at the end of the day, even if it costs a penny to send a voicemail drop out to somebody, you still need something. Just take my advice. Believe me, don't save yourself the trouble. You still need something good to offer them or you're wasting your penny per voicemail drop. So you get an offer together. Then, and you may have to test different offers, of course, you get a good list. Manually building a phone number list to send the voicemail drops to is the best. Particularly if you're selling to businesses, that's the way that I would go, honestly. But, you get yourself access to a good list. So a lot of people you buy a phone number list with, that's going to have 50% or more of that list be bunk. And then, of course, now if you're sending voicemails to a bunch of bunk names, it makes it a lot harder to make money. You should pay more per name, per person you're going to contact if the accuracy of the data is better. Because the ROI usually shakes out where you're going to get a better ROI that way. But more importantly, as you do your testing, you want accurate feedback. You don't want to say, oh, this offer didn't work, but really 80% of your list was dog shit. They were fake names to begin with. And now you pass something up that would have made you millions in the long run, but because you were too short-sighted on what you were willing to pay per name on your list to contact, you oversaw it. So get yourself, whether you go through a data broker like Nextmark, or you manually go to Google and make a list of all the people you want to contact, make sure you go for quality. With the avid golfers, by the way, so we went to Nextmark for that specific list and example that I told you about. In some contexts, you may have to you have to go to a different data broker specifically to be able to get the names, but they're out there. And sometimes what we've done in certain markets, not for voicemail drops specifically, but if we want to get a list, like an email list to target and have banner ads show up for them across the internet, which is something you can obviously also do, I talk about on this channel all the time, you could go to an actual other vendor. Go to somebody who sells stuff to the same exact customers you need to sell to. In the golfing example, Why don't we sell, if we don't sell golf carts, okay, and the golf cart guy doesn't sell golf balls and golf clubs, but it's the same buyer, why don't we just go to the golf cart seller and get his customer list and tell him we'll pay him 10 cents a name to rent the list to send the voicemails to. To him, it's all just free money. Why would you not sell? And you get access to that list, which a lot of times you can convince them to give you extra information about, like in terms of how much they spent, how many golf carts they bought over time, on and on and on, which can help you filter your list. And if you aren't quite getting the return you want out of your voicemail drop campaign, let's say you're halfway to the ROI you need, you can then filter your list a little bit. Let's say let's only send it to the people who bought $5,000 golf cart. Anybody under that, we won't market to. Anyway, that's another way to get a list. Just giving you some basic ideas of how to approach this. Number 3, you're going to break the list into various area codes. Before there was voicemail drops, I used to do the same functional thing. I would get a way to do robocalls if I was targeting nationwide. We did this for our own ad agency, actually. I'm not afraid to admit it. With that, we would actually break the list up so that we would be able to call people after hours. So effectively, we'd have a way to leave a voicemail on someone's phone because it's calling after hours, so to say. As technology has advanced, you can actually call people during business hours or whatnot, or anytime, and it doesn't matter if that person's apt to answer the phone, it'll just go to the voicemail right away anyway. So if you're wondering how it works, I don't know exactly what they're doing on the technology side. All I know is it doesn't literally ring, and that's why they call it ringless voicemails specifically. But as that is said, you lose a little bit of credibility if the person checks their voicemail and they knew that they answered the phone all day long, and all of a sudden you got a voicemail, shit ain't landed.